Let us begin. Good morning, everybody. Let us begin. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth. May all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous, moving desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Okay, with this, let us begin our mindfulness practice. We pay total undivided attention to our breathing, focusing mind on the breath, noticing the breath touching our nostrils when we breathe in, and expanding our chest area, and expanding the lower abdominal area. When we breathe out, we notice lower abdomen contracts, chest area contracts, the breath leaving the nostrils. These are the functions of breathing in and out. When they are invariably happening every time we breathe in and out. So then at the same time, we feel the breath, we perceive it, we have mental activities or thoughts and consciousness. They are called, the breath is called body, then feeling, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, known as the five aggregate or five composites, and they all change as we breathe in and out. They rise and fall, rise and fall. Feeling rises and falls, perception rises and falls, thought rises and falls, consciousness rises and falls, together with the rising and falling of the breath. And therefore, they all happen at the same time. And therefore, there is nothing special, and the mind cannot hold on to anything because everything is rising and falling, rising and falling. When something is rising and falling all the time, the mind cannot literally hold on to anything because nothing is fixed, static. Always everything is moving. And then we let go of our greed to hold on to anything. And then body relaxes, mind relaxes, the breath relaxes. We all know when we try to hold, tightness arise. When we let go of it, we are relaxed, body relaxed, mind is relaxed, feeling, perceptions all are relaxed. In this relaxed state of mind, the feeling of metta operates. When there is no rigidity, uptightness, metta really works. So we feel that. When we feel metta, our restlessness and worry also settles down, and then compassion arises. Compassion, of course, is seeing suffering beings, knowing suffering beings, compassion arises, and that also functions in a very positive way. And then sleepiness and drowsiness also fade away. When we are energetic, we become energetic when we see the reality. We want to go ahead and continue our practice, and we want to be more engaged. We get encouraged, which leads to getting rid of our sleepiness and drowsiness. So then, seeing all this, we get we will have a confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and the results of our practice. Seeing all this, we become we have confidence, faith arises, trust arises in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And then when this happens, naturally we are full of joy because our work, our practice is working. We see the benefit. Our greed, hatred, resentment, restlessness and worry, sleepiness and drowsiness, and doubt fade away. When they fade away, we become full of joy. Happiness leads to tranquility, tranquility leads to concentration. This is how it happens. When we gain concentration, our awareness of subtlest changes in our body, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness becomes very conspicuous, very clear, and with that state, we see that there is nothing permanent called self or soul, because everything in a state of flux. To see this is very important for us to get rid of our greed, hatred, and delusion, the notion of self, notion of permanency, and seeing all these things, we will be relaxed and peaceful. Let us see how it works. Dukkhappata ca nidukkha, Bhayappata ca nibbhaya, Sokappata ca nisoka, Hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this metta thought in mind, let us begin our today's Dhamma talk. Today we are going to speak on Chitta-anupasana, that is mindfulness of Chitta. Chitta, Mano, Vijnana are used synonymously. So in this place, the Buddha used the word Chitta. Some other places he used Mano, and some other places he used Vijnana. So all these are synonyms. We cannot know the Chitta or Vijnana or Mano alone. It either has greed, hatred, delusion, contraction, distraction, unconcentrated, and not liberated. These are the 8 steps. Each has 2. Greed or not greed, or greedy mind or not greedy mind, hateful mind or not hateful mind, deluded mind or not deluded mind, concentrated mind or unconcentrated mind, distracted mind or not distracted mind, developed mind or not developed mind, not surpassed mind or surpassed mind, not concentrated mind or concentrated mind, and not liberated mind or not liberated mind. These are the 16 moments that arise anytime in our daily life, not only during meditation. Now this meditation is also very active meditation, and these 16 states, 16 moments can arise anytime in our daily life. So sometimes this is very important to remember. Some people ask a question, how we use meditation, how can we be mindful in our daily life. Most of the time people say, when you do something, you just pay attention to it. And that's all they say. And sometimes they say, when you wash dishes, you pay attention to the washing dish. And so forth. Uh, Paying attention is absolutely necessary to know what is happening in the mind, not outside. And therefore this meditation on consciousness is very important to remember. For instance, greedy mind. Mind always is not greedy. Whenever we do certain things, eating, drinking, walking, sitting, standing, sleeping, and so forth. When we are engaged in certain activities, mind always is not greedy, although we have a desire, but it is not active. When it actively works in our mind, greed, then we call it greedy mind. So, greedy mind doesn't arise only when we sit on a cushion. And out of cushion we don't have greedy mind. That is not true. Greedy mind can, we experience greedy mind while sitting on a cushion, while standing, while walking, washing dishes, cooking, cleaning, whatever activities we are participating, in those activities, greed can arise. At that moment, the meditator must remember how to deal with it. Suppose the mind does not have greed, does not have greed. At that time, you try to maintain that and try to use one of the four efforts. What are the four efforts? Effort to restrain, effort to overcome, effort to develop, effort to maintain. That means when the mind does not have greed, you just remember to maintain that non-greedy state of mind. And you should be very glad the mind is not greedy. And you keep that is an effort. Mindfully, you maintain that non-greedy state of mind. Although in this teaching we see greedy mind, not greedy mind, uh, it always not happening like that. First we may not have greed. The way it is given, we don't experience anything exactly that way. For instance, first greedy mind, then not greedy mind, first hateful mind, then not hateful mind, not like that. You have to be mindful and smart, wise enough to identify the particular mental state at any given moment. Any moment. In this case, I said the mind does not have greed. Okay. So you see, this is a very good moment for me not to invite greed, not to bring greed into my mind. You know, we always hear prevention is better than cure. So this is the state you have to use the effort to prevent greed from arising in your mind. With this intention, with this awareness, you work. You even don't think of greed. Mind does not have greed. So you make effort to maintain that state. All of a sudden you remember something. You have seen certain things, heard certain sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought arise in your mind, which is greedy. If you remember seeing an object, person or place or something like that, which is attractive, we mentioned earlier there are 60 places where greed can arise. 60 places through the six senses. I don't know whether you remember, greed can arise through the eye, object, form, eye consciousness, eye contact, the feeling that arising from the combination of these four, and then perception of the form and thought of the form, greed arises, and after that greed, you think more about it and you deliberate. These are 10 places that greed can arise through the one sense, that is sense of eye faculty. Similarly, with ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, through each faculty, greed can arise uh, 10 times. So when you multiply these 10 by 6, you have 60 places where greed can arise. So you have plenty of opportunity to see greed. When you don't have greed, you should be very happy because you are totally surrounded by the opportunity to have greed. Less opportunities you have not to have greed. Therefore, when there is no greed, you just try to not to invite greed. However, because of your previous experience in life, so many years you have seen, heard, smelled, tasted, and so forth, so many things. It is almost impossible for you to avoid greed from arising. That is why when you feel that there is no greed, you should be very happy. You are very lucky. When greed arises, then you become, this is the greedy state of mind. Greed cannot arise by itself. Greed needs the consciousness. Greed needs the consciousness. When we were talking about mentality and materiality, nama, rupa, I mentioned that nothing, none of the mental factors like contact, feeling, perception, thought, and attention, none of them can arise without consciousness. And therefore, when you have a form, seeing with eyes, consciousness is there. If the form happen to be a pleasant form, greed can arise. And therefore, it is very, very delicate and very quick function. So, suppose you have greed arose in your mind, then you use an effort to overcome that greed. That is the effort to overcome. Pahana padhana in Pali. Pahana padhana. How can you overcome that greed? It doesn't go away as easily, as quickly as it came in. Now you have to make an effort to let go of that greed. What is the how you can make that effort? You have to be mindful that this greed is producing pain. It is called craving, tanha, Pali word, many Pali word. Here we use raga, raga, tanha, prema, and so forth. So many words are used. Whenever greed arises, pain arises. Tanha jati soko, tanha jati bhayang. Tanha vipamutta sanati soko kuto bhayam, Buddha said. From the greed arises grief, soka, grief. From greed arises fear. When there is no greed, there is no fear, no grief. So you see what do you call danger, what do you call adhina of greed. Seeing adhina of greed, adhina means danger. That danger is that greed produces pain and suffering. That is one adhina. Second is Greed is not permanent. Anything that arises is not permanent. In our meditation, we were talking about impermanence. This greed is, on the one hand, on the one hand generate pain, sorrow, grief. On the other hand, this greed is not permanent, unsatisfactory. Although you temporarily might think greed gives you pleasure, it doesn't give you pleasure. It gives you pain. So you see, mindfully, you see this mental state called greed is impermanent, it is unsatisfactory, it is without self, it produces pain, it produces suffering, and therefore, why should I sustain it, maintain it? I must let go of it. Now, you don't see this in books outside. You are looking at your own mind and seeing how things happen to you in your mind. Friends, no matter how many thousands of Dhamma talks you listen to about greed, you will not overcome one iota of it until you look at your own mind, until you see the danger of it, until you see the disadvantage of it, until you make effort. This is the second effort. Third effort is, now you want to make it disappear. So you make that effort and then it disappeared. Then again you return to the same state where there was no greed. First there was no greed and greed arose. Then you had to overcome the greed. Now you overcame greed. And then you return to the same state where there was no greed. And then that is you have to understand this is the moment that I must cultivate. This is called bhavana padhana, making effort to repeat. Bhavana means repetition of certain things, wholesome things, in order to clean the mind. Wholesome things wholesome or unwholesome, all are in the mind. So greed is not wholesome, it is unwholesome. It is gone. Now you have a wholesome state. So you repeat that wholesome state again and again and again. Then your mind will be trained, will be conditioned to stay without greed. And then repeat that exercise. That is called Anurakkana Padhana. Anurakkana means protection. Buddha said, once you use your wisdom weapon to fight Mara's army, you gain something and protect that without clinging to it. Now, this is another tricky moment. When you have overcome your greed, you have greedless state of mind, and then you try to maintain it. To maintain, you have to repeat the same exercise. Now, this is your meditation. This you can use these four types of effort whenever the greed arises in your mind. When there is no greed, be happy. When there is greed, let it go. When it goes away, you will be in the same state where there is no greed. And then, remembering these steps of exercise, steps of effort, you repeat it anytime greed arises. Now, these are the four efforts you have to apply for each of these 8 pairs. 8 pairs are greedy state of mind, hateful, greedy state, non-greedy state, hateful, non-hateful, deluded, not deluded, then contracted or distracted, then not developed or developed, not surpassed, but surpassed. I explained that. And then not concentrated or concentrated, uh, not liberated or liberated. Now, out of these pairs, greedy state you understand, non-greedy state you understand, hateful state you understand, not hateful state you understand. Hateful state is also very common, very easy for people to understand because they always use the word. Sometimes whenever they don't like, they say, I hate that. You train even little children. Even little children say, I hate that. We learn from childhood to use the word I hate. And when this hate does not limit to the word, it becomes a part of your mind, your life. And therefore, when that word, that experience, that mental state arises, before it was not there. Before it, there was, as I said about greed, the hate also is not always in your mind. You are very peaceful. You may be very friendly. But all of a sudden, for some reason, hate arises in your mind. Then use the same technique of effort. Hate is always makes you unhappy, painful. Remember, we use the dependent origination. When hate arises, pain arises. So hate comes along with pain. So hate does not come by itself. When hate comes, pain comes. So we know this from dependent origination studies. Anytime pain arises, there is either greed or hatred. One of them. Now, in this case, hate arises, pain arises. So you learn to let it go and return to your hateless state of mind. When it is gone, you know you are happy that the hate is gone. Of course, one of those techniques, in addition to these four efforts, by practicing metta, you suspend hate arising in your mind. You temporarily hold it at bay. Temporarily it will not arise during the time you practice metta. And when you want to overcome hatred, immediately you see it is impermanent, it is painful, and see the disadvantage, this is the danger, adinava, and let go of. Let go of means don't pay attention to it. There are many ways of overcoming hatred. We learn this elsewhere. So we let go of that hatred. This is mental exercise. This can happen while we are eating, drinking, walking, sitting, standing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't select one particular posture. In any posture, any time, anywhere, it can arise, just like greed. As soon as it arose in your mind, that very moment, bring your reinforcement, your army against that. What is that? For effort, mindfulness. Remember, in all these cases, three factors must be kept in mind. Three factors. What are the three factors? I mentioned only one of them to overcome greed and so forth, these negative states. Three of them. And these three we find in the Noble Eightfold Path. This is a Noble Eightfold Path also put into practice, put into action. What are the three things? Understanding, effort, and mindfulness. Understanding, effort, and mindfulness. Remember these three, what we call cardinal factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. When greed arises, hate arises, and so forth, first you must understand it, be mindful of it, and then apply your effort. Understanding, mindfulness, and effort. First, you have to understand at the particular state exactly as it is and see how dangerous it is, how pain it produces. There's understanding, and then you have to be mindful that this is impermanent, this is unsatisfactory, this is without self. Then you apply your effort to let go of it. There are various ways of applying effort. Five ways are given in Vitakasantana Sutta, and in many places Buddha has used the ways of applying effort. So we apply this effort and let it go. Using these three factors, and you can do that while standing, sitting, walking, wherever you are, at whatever time you are, you can use this. So, Noble Eightfold Path, and particularly these three factors, must be kept in mind. One of these three factors is right effort. So, when non-hatred is no longer there, metta is prevailing, you want to continue it, repeat it again and again. Use the same technique. Then delusion. What is the delusion? Delusion can arise. Delusion is sort of not seeing things very clearly. Samoha, samohang chittang, samohang chittanti. Now, when the mind is deluded, we should be able to see the mind is deluded. We have certain degree of understanding to know that I am deluded. It is sort of intrinsic nature of our mind. That is, when we are confused, we know that we are confused. If the person is confused and does not know that he is confused, then of course it is something very serious. But normal person, ordinary person, knows when the person is not very clear, mind is not clear. For instance, when you are not clear, you can say, I'm sorry, now I'm little confused. I don't want to say anything right now. Let my mind be clear. Then I talk, I think, I do such and such a thing. Like that, ordinarily people can say, normal people. So in this case, when you are mindful, you understand, I'm confused, I am deluded. Of course, delusion naturally comes from ignorance. Why you are deluded? You are not very sure. You are not certain. Certain things is very ambiguous. So you see, it is not clear in my mind. The serious state of that is called deluded state. In psychology, psychologists know delusion is a serious problem, and they will do a lot of wrong things. But we don't talk about that kind of very serious state of delusion. We talk about not seeing the truth, the facts, danger of delusion as it is. So when the mind is deluded, understand this is the deluded state of mind, and let me wait, let me have patience, let me make effort to make my mind clear. You always are not deluded. When you are not deluded, understand that I am okay, my mind is clear. When delusion arises, you understand that you have delusion. And then you try to overcome that delusion using your effort. To overcome delusion, first thing you have to be mindful that delusion is impermanent, unsatisfactory, selfless. It doesn't make you happy. It is always making things muddle up. So I want to get rid of it. And you got rid of it and then return to clear state of mind and then try to be mindful to maintain that clear state of mind. Friends, it seems that this section also is much very important. Perhaps our time doesn't permit us to continue this session this way in one talk. So I will continue it next time because my time is up, and I want to conclude this morning session wishing you all peace and happiness. Today I especially want to mention the President of the United States. We heard also admitted to World Trade Hospital. On behalf of all of us, we want to wish him very happy, quick recovery and return to his normal health to continue his job and live long in very good health. So we want to send our metta to him to recover from his COVID-19, as we already have heard, reported. I hope it is not serious, and soon he should recover. So we want to wish him and all other patients of COVID-19 to be free from this as quickly as possible and return to normal health and continue their regular life and finally attain perfect peace and ultimate goal without any suffering. And there are some other people who also have lost their very dear ones and they also have grief. I'm sure by now they have understood the Dhamma and overcome their grief. And then live long in very good health to understand Dhamma and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. There are many people like doctors, nurses, hospital staffs who very compassionately, selflessly dedicate their life, risking their own lives, especially even they when they take care of this very dangerous virus, the patients affected by this virus. Perhaps those people are risking their life. I want to send our metta for them not to get affected from this and maintain their health to continue their wonderful service. And there are some leaders who have done very wonderful job in their own countries and reduced the number of uh, patients, COVID patients, uh, and then we want to wish them to continue their very insightful work. And with this, I want to wish all other leaders who have not yet made right decision to overcome this virus. May they have wisdom, courage, understanding, determination to make right decision, wise decision very quickly, not too late, as early as they can to stop this, at least to help these people and themselves from not getting this virus. With this, I want to end this morning's session.